Rockets and Knicks were in Game 5 when O.J. started that fateful drive. His four-way hazard lights were blinking, and no one knew what the Jews was thinking.
I've been to Reno, Chicago, Fargo, Minnesota, Buffalo, Toronto, Winslow, Sarasota, Wichita, Tulsa, Ottawa, Oklahoma, Tampa, Panama, Mattawa, La Paloma, Bangor, Baltimore, Salvador, Amarillo, Tocopilla, Barranquilla, and Padilla. I'm a killed. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert bare, man. I breathe the mountain air, man. Of travel I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere.
This is Oversight Live, your advocate for good governance. We're putting the site back in. Oversight. Here's the watcher on the wall, your host, Ben Carpenter.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Oversight Live. I am Ben Carpenter, your host for the evening. What is Oversight Live? Well, Oversight Live is your road to Juneau until one can be built. Look, Alaskans know it's hard to get down to Juneau, and we got a flyer, we got to take the ferry, and it's just cost prohibitive. We'd like to provide oversight, but my goodness, getting down there is a challenge. Well, it's not. Just because we don't have a road and it's hard to get down there, it's not a valid excuse for not knowing what's going on, because most of what's going on down there, at least from the public's perspective, is something that you can watch. It's recorded for us. Okay, so what am I going to do? With my 6 years experience in the legislature, I have prioritized what I think is important and enlightening and educational and helpful to you for knowing what's going on and helping you understand how to provide oversight of what's going on down there in Juneau. How can I help empower you to know what's going on? That's what Oversight Live is all about. So I have previewed a bunch of the committee meetings and things that are going on and recorded on a daily basis, and I'm going to bring you what I think is important. If you want to see something that's important to you, you can always email me or get a hold of me. My email address is probably the easiest way to do this, producer@OversightLive.com. Ask me what you'd like to see, and I'll do my best to get it queued up and present it. If you got questions about what's going on, just text them in your app there. We're broadcasting on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And if you chat in real time live here during the show, I'll get it. I'll get the message and I'll do my best to answer your question. If you're watching the recording, again, send me an email, producer@OversightLive.com, and I'll do my best to answer your question. Don't be surprised if I use your question on air, because if you've got the question, somebody else has got the same thing. So we'll just edify us all by answering the question on the air. Okay, we're going to try to have some fun. Tonight, we're going to break it up a little bit. We have spent some time looking at the gas line, the AKLNG project discussions that are going on within the legislature. We're going to get to that as well tonight, but I've got a couple other things that I want to bring to you that are important, answering some of the questions and misinformation that happens out there. And I want to show you how things work and how you can find the information that you want in regards to how did your representative or senator vote in committee. Because you'll hear lots of people saying, or some people will say, well, they voted for this or they voted for that. They supported that bill, whatever. You need to be able to go look for yourself. You won't need to be able to go look for yourself and then communicate to others what the actual truth is, because you saw it. You witnessed it. You saw the ground truth. Okay. What we hear and see on social media is not always accurate. Let's just put it that way. And it's way too easy to go find the answer. All right. So let's start there. Let's go to the conference committee today, and we'll get an update on the conference committee, and then I'll show you a couple things here with Senate Resources met twice today, and we'll use Senate Resources as an example here. So let's get an update on the budget. pretty quick. Yesterday, we brought you the conference committee. We're back in the conference committee. And this is Senator Hoffman here getting ready to read his script and tell us what's going on with this within the Senate committee, the conference committee. Now, they're going to go over a document, and I'm going to show you that document once we've watched the recording here and commented on it. Then we're going to review the document, and I'm going to show you where to find that document so you can see what they're actually talking about. Because it was always frustrating to me as a legislator. I'm not privy to the conversation that produced the document. But if I'm sitting in the peanut gallery watching what's happening, I don't know what they're doing because I don't have the document sitting in front of me. So I can show you where to find it. Anyway, let's see what happens in the conference committee today.
Today's agenda: limited powers of free conference have been granted by both House and Senate.
Remember, we said from yesterday's broadcast that as soon as the conference committee gets put into place, because both houses of the legislature didn't agree on the budget, and through their processes, they need to come together and agree on a budget, and so they create this conference committee to work out the differences. They had their initial meeting yesterday. They needed to go back to the presiding officers and say, hey, we didn't find an agreement on day one. Grant us limited powers of free conference so that we can iron out our differences. And if we can't do that, then we'll move to free conference and they'll replace the members of the committee. We're not there yet. We're just with limited powers, and we're going to hear what they were able to accomplish today.
Mr. Alexi Painter, the Director of Finance Division, to join us at the table. They will be addressing open items in HB 263 and HB 265 based on the motion sheets that were distributed to members earlier today, May the 12th. Going over the FY supplemental operating items, Representative Josephson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. For the FY supplemental operating items addressed today, I move that the committee adopt the following FY 26 supplemental operating items. Items 1 and 2, Senate. Item 3, Senate, both items. Item 4 will be left open. Items 5 through 20, Senate, all items. Item 21, left open. Item 22, Senate, both items. Items 23 through 25, Senate, all items.
Okay, so there it is. Aren't you wiser now? You know what happened down in Juneau today. That doesn't mean anything to you. Doesn't mean anything to me without more information, right? Okay, as a reminder, yesterday, the conference committee agreed upon some things within the budget, and they set that aside. They said, this is what we agree upon. We're going to set that aside. Now we'll focus on the things we don't agree upon. They go and get limited powers. They come back today, and now they've got a spreadsheet. I'm going to show you that spreadsheet here in a minute that details which version of the bill are they going to agree to, the House version or the Senate version. And that's what was just communicated to Representative Josephson, the operating budget co-chair of House Finance, said, we're going to take all of the Senate versions of these line items, with the exception of a couple, and we're going to leave those open as we're still discussing and don't have a solution yet. So it's paring it down. It's finding the agreement. It's identifying those things that we really need to discuss and eliminating those things that we don't need to discuss to get to an agreement. Okay. It's a strategy. All right. Not much more here before I'm going to show you the spreadsheet.
Are there questions on the motion? Are there any objections to that motion? Seeing none, that motion is adopted. This action closes conferenceable items 1 through 3, item 5 through 20, item 22 through 25 in the FY 26 supplemental operating budget. Items left open are items 4 and item 21. As future meetings of the conference committee are scheduled, they will be posted on basis to provide reasonable public notice under the 24-hour rule. Is there any additional items that any members of the conference committee would like to take up at this time? Seeing none, Representative Josephson.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
I hear.
And that's as fast as a conference committee happens sometimes. All of the work was done between last conference committee and this conference committee to get where we're at now. Okay. And we're done. That's all the public process that exists with regard to a meeting happening. Okay. We'll take lines 1, 2, 3, skip 4. We'll take 6, 7 through 20. I mean, doesn't mean anything to you. You got to know where to look. All right, let me show you a little bit more detail here on what we're actually talking about. Okay, so here's the cut sheet. Here's the agreement sheet, and I'm going to make it bigger here so you can see. Let's make it even bigger because I don't know that I can make that any bigger here. You still can't read that, can you? I can't even read it. So I'm going to do it a different way here. First of all, let me show you where I can find this. We're going to remove this, come back here. We'll go a different route so I can make it bigger. All right. Okay. This is the Legislative Finance Division website. Okay. You can find it at this address. LEG Finance, Leg Finance, Ledge Finance, however you want to pronounce it, .akleg.gov. And you can come up with this document here, or this web page. Okay. When you click on this link right here, Conference Committee Actions by Meeting, it'll pull up the document that we just pulled up. Okay. I clicked on it and it pulled it up on my screen, but I'm sharing this one. So let me stop sharing this and then I will share the real document. And then once we've got that shared, I can blow it up. Okay. All right. So now let me make this bigger for you. Oh, that's the wrong one. There we go. Okay. Move this around a little bit. All right. So let me orient you to this thing here, this screen. Okay, so you've got the appropriation, the allocation. This is telling you where the money's going to. What is the description is listed up here. And then over on the right-hand side, and also if you want to know the agency, what department we're talking about, okay? Now, when Representative Josephson says, we'll take lines 1, 2, and 3, that's what he's talking about here. Line 1, line 2, line 3. All right? So far, so good? Okay. Here is your information for your House. Here is your information for your Senate. So they don't put the House information in here because none of the House version is being adopted. All of the Senate version is being adopted. Okay. So the way you read this is in the numbers are in thousands. And usually whenever you see a decimal plus one number to the right, it's in thousands. That's how I remind myself. If there's 2 decimals there, then those are cents. A portion of $1, right? But when you've got one decimal place, then that's not a portion of $1. That's whole dollars. Okay. So this number, the way you read it is $50,000. The number below here is $800,000. If you scroll down, when you see a 5,200, that's 5,200,000. Okay. That's the easy way to read this. All right. So then we've got notes and then you've got version adopted. So if you care, you're wanting to figure out how they're making sausage, you can always come look at this document and it'll tell you which house, which body provision was adopted. Okay. Well, Senate, he said that we're taking the Senate version here, and that's what that's referencing. And then he said there's one that's open. Item 4 was left open. Okay. So this is Department of Education, K-12 aid to school districts. This is additional foundation funding, not to exceed $111 million from the fiscal year 26 surplus after energy relief payment distribution in fiscal year 27. So this is the waterfall effect that happens if there is a high cost of gas. Sorry, the gas prices are higher and we achieve more revenue than we project that we're going to achieve, then there will be additional funding to education. But Senate hasn't necessarily agreed to that because I know that that's a House provision. So they leave it open because they're going to have to debate it still. Okay. So they leave it open. There's no choice here. It still says House or Senate. They don't know what it's going to be. All right. Because they're in limited, this number can change. Because the committee has limited powers, they can select 50,000, or they could say, well, we can find agreement on 40,000. We just couldn't find agreement on 50,000. And so they can change that number. If that number was changed, so this must be the original in the Senate version, because if it was a position change, this would have a dollar figure in it to say that there's a change, that they came off their position. So this must be what was in the original bill. Okay. All right. Or originally passed by the Senate. All right. Let me check the notes here and see where you guys are at. Yeah. Okay. So what we were told is lines 1, 2, and 3 were adopted. 4 was not adopted. And then 5 through 20 were adopted. So all of this is all adopted. Get down to 20. Okay. 21 was not adopted. Well, let's look and see what 21 is. And I should say 21 was not adopted yet because we're not done with the process. Well, that's the energy relief payment. Okay. So this is the supplemental fiscal year 26 surplus. Again, we're dealing with the leftover money if we have high oil prices. Okay. Not to exceed $96 million for fiscal year 27 energy relief payment. Okay. Well, in that placeholder here, which is basically what it is because they haven't agreed to it, that's a $96 million appropriation from general funds. And I didn't say this earlier. This other column here that's labeled fund source tells you where the money's coming from. So for example, line 1, you look at the $50,000, but it's not actually, I mean, it's federal money. It's just authorization to receive federal money. So it's not coming out of the general fund. It's not state tax dollars. It's not coming out of the dividend or the permanent fund. It's none of that. It's federal receipt. This one happens to be a split here. It's being taken. The appropriation is a decrement out of the rail energy fund and taken out of the general fund. So I guess the way to, this is a reduction, but this is an appropriation. So I think what that means is 98.7 is going back into the rail energy, and then 98.7 is coming out of the general fund. I could be wrong on that. All I know is this is when you see the red or you see the parentheses, that means that it's a negative or a subtraction. So I think what we're saying here, since this is a spending request, that $98,000 is going back into the rail energy fund. I'd have to double check on that. I could be wrong, but anyway, for what is happening here is money is moving around in 2 different funds, the rail energy fund and the general fund. And the special note here says that the items 3 and 24 are linked. So then you jump down to 24, item 24, and this is budget reserves. Reduce transfer railbelt energy fund for amount spent in supplemental budget. Okay, so that's what they're reducing, and I was right. They're reducing that transfer. Reduce the transfer. So there was a sum of money that was transferred, and they're going to reduce that transfer. That doesn't mean that was the complete amount that was transferred. It just means that that's the reduction of the transfer. Okay. All right. So where are we going here? 20. 22 through 24 were all adopted. Okay. So everything on here except line 21 and line 4 were adopted. Check this out. Right here, lines 19 and 20. These are judgments, claims, and settlements. So somebody did something wrong. The court has made a judgment against the state. There's some sort of claim that's being paid, or some lawyers made a settlement for some wrongdoing or whatever in the legal world caused the state to owe money. That's what's happened in these two. So this is what's being appropriated here. This is $534,000 of general fund money and $1.5 million of general fund money. So a little over $2 million being appropriated for in this budget for judgments, claims, and settlements. Doesn't that make you feel good? Okay. All right. So that's how you, that's the update for, oh, you know what? There's going to be a special session. You know how I know that? Look at line 16. Session expenses, funding for a 30-day special session, $1 million. So somebody is expecting that there's going to be a special session. And so we're going to add some supplemental funding to this current budget, right? It's supplemental budget to the current fiscal year because we're expecting to be in session, in a special session during this current fiscal year. So we need some money to do that. Oh boy. So that helps you understand why maybe the House Finance is not taking up the resources bill that got passed out for the pipeline. They're focused on other bills because they're probably thinking to themselves, why do we need to talk about this? We're going to be talking about it in special session. So we can get the other work done. Okay. All right. Let me bring that back out. So, that's what I wanted to show you there. So we've updated the conference committee results. We've discussed how it happens and that it's not super transparent, but you can go to the Legislative Finance Division and look what they adopted and what they didn't. Those documents are available. All right. Let me check in with your comments here. They should cut per diem by 50% for special sessions motivation to get done, right? Well, you're asking them to go down there and do the work. I'd like to see them do it in Anchorage. I think that'd be a hoot. We could all go see what's happening during the special session. See who actually cares about a pipeline. I can't wait to get into this with Senate Resources this afternoon and show you what they're working on. Okay, let's jump over to Senate Resources this morning for a little bit of education. No, let me remove that. Share my screen. Okay, what I'm jumping into here is morning edition of the Senate Resources Committee. Remember, they said yesterday that they were going to be holding 2-a-days. Okay. So you can see let me make this bigger so you can see. You can see that they had a HB 79 on the docket or they don't call it dockets. Dockets is in the courts. They had noticed HB 79, which is a park renaming bill, and then HB 93, which is a bill dealing with residency requirements. I'm going to jump into the tail end of the discussion on HB 93 for a very specific reason. Not sure whether it's going anywhere. It's HB 93. This is Senate Resources. So it is possible that it could get to the finish line and get passed this year because it's already passed the House because it's in the Senate. Okay. So let's have a listen here. And I want to show you something. How do you, when they vote, when you're watching a meeting and they vote on a bill, how do you know whether your person voted in favor or supports the bill? Or maybe it's somebody that you want to know. How do you know whether they are supporters of the bill? I'm going to show you how to figure that out.
I'm looking to the will of the committee. Senator Wolikowski.
Madam Chair, I move House Bill 93, Work Order 34-LS0058/G as in Golovin from committee with individual recommendations and attached zero fiscal note. Legislative Legal has the authority to make necessary technical and conforming changes.
Okay, at this point, because the motion is being made, if there's no objection from any of the committee members, that motion will be adopted and that bill will move out of committee. And you won't have any record of opposition or support for the bill. Okay, it'll just move out. Let me make a backup. You won't have any verbal. Nothing on the recording will show you any conversation or how they vote. Okay, and the vote's misleading because I'll show you here in a minute. As soon as they get done, if nobody objected, they're going to sign a piece of paper, and that piece of paper is going to tell them whether they have a due pass, do not pass, no recommendation, or an amend. Okay, those are the individual recommendations that the committee members would make, and that's how you show support or objection to the bill. Okay, so what is going to happen now is opposition to actually passing the bill out of committee. It has nothing to do with whether you support the bill or not. Just should it go out of committee? Usually, if you don't want it to go out of committee, that means you don't support the bill, but not always.
Object.
There's an objection. Would you like to speak to your objection?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something here. Representative Himshoot included a paper here, and basically the costs of what it would be to go from a non-resident or from a resident to a non-resident status for hunting. Bison tag, you would pay nothing as a resident, but you would pay $900 as a non-resident, $25 for grizzly bear tag, $1,000 as a non-resident, but you also have to hire a guide, which goes into the tens of thousands. Muskox cow tag, $25 for a resident and $2,200 for a non-resident. Now, there was about 4 or 5 gentlemen stated that there were 100,000 PFDs that weren't applied for. This seems like a moneymaker for the state. That's what I see out of it, but that's just a statement. And I see that it's hard to argue that it wouldn't be, but I just wanted to make that statement.
Thank you, Senator Rocher. I will follow up that statement. About 8 years ago,
Okay, so if nobody objected to the bill would have moved out of committee and nobody would have spoken about it. The only way that you're going to have your representatives speak to the bill is for them to object. And sometimes you'll hear them object and then remove their objection just so that they can have the chance to speak, right? They want to posture, they want to explain their vote or explain their opposition, right? So now we're going to hear other people talk.
representative from the area you are the senator for brought forward these hunting and fishing fees. These are still well under what other states charge for their prize hunting tags. But we did raise the fees. It is true, about 8 years ago. Follow up, Senator Rocher.
I wasn't complaining about the fee itself. I was explaining the difference that you are not a resident now and the amount you would be paying if you were a non-resident as opposed to a resident. That's all. I wasn't complaining about the fees. I just want you to know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Senator Kawasaki.
Yeah, and thanks. And I see it in a different way. I think what this says is that clearly there's a benefit to being a resident of the state of Alaska, and that resident and us as residents who live here year-round should be able to benefit more than a person who's a part-time resident or not what I would consider a resident of the state.
Thank you. There has been objection to adoption of the motion to move the bill. Is the objection sustained?
Yes.
Mayor Gwynn, would you please call the roll?
Okay. So if you're sustaining your objection, or some chairs will ask, is the objection maintained? which is actually the correct way to ask. Is your objection maintained? This is the only way to get the public to see whether the person wants to see the bill move out of committee. Now, for those that think that this is a vote of support or objection to the bill, this is where the confusion happens, because what is being asked by the chair, the motion on the floor made by Senator Wielechowski was, I move this version of the bill out of committee to the next committee of referral. That's the motion that's on the floor. Okay. It isn't, do you support this bill and should it become law? This is the confusion that holding a vote and moving a bill out of committee lends people to think that for some reason you voted to support the bill. Okay. Technically, you voted to support the bill moving out of committee and moving on in the process. So you can be a process person and say, look, I'm going to vote when it comes time to vote this bill on the floor as to whether we're going to pass it or not. I'm going to vote against it, but I'm not holding up the process for it because I believe in this legislative process. Okay. That is, some people hold to that and have and value the process that we're going through. So now they have to vote. You can force the vote. Any one of the representatives there can force the vote by objecting, and now they have to call the roll as to whether they've got the votes to move it out of committee.
Motion has been to move House Bill 93 from committee with individual recommendations and attach zero fiscal note. Mayor Gwynn?
Senator Dunbar,
Yes.
Senator Clayman,
Yes.
Senator Wielechowski.
Yes.
Senator Kawasaki.
Yes.
Senator Myers.
No.
Senator Rauscher.
No.
Senator Giesel.
Yes.
5 yeas, 2 nays.
And so by a vote of 2 yeas, 5 yeas and 2 nays, House Bill 93 moves from committee with attached zero fiscal notes and individual recommendations. We will
Okay. So there's a little sheet that they're going to sign now with the individual recommendations. You got 2 people that voted no to move it out of committee. Sometimes opposing to move it out of committee is because you think that it should be amended further, but the majority doesn't want to amend it anymore. And so you just oppose it moving forward because you think it needs to be amended, and you're just standing your ground, right? Okay, so let's move to the next stage. So this is, you can recognize this as 10 o'clock in the morning today. All right. Let me stop sharing that and move to, this is very quickly. Okay. This is the floor session. So what happens once the bill moves out of committee? Well, that bill would go to another committee if it had a second committee of referral, but resources happens to be the last committee of referral. So it's now going to the floor, okay? Or going to the rules committee to get calendared. But here's where you can understand whether somebody supports a bill or not by listening in the morning. Reports of standing committees happens every single time there's a floor session. Whenever a bill moves out of committee, there's a report that gets read across the floor in both houses, and it tells you what happened in that committee. It gives a summary. So as a legislator, House member or Senate member sitting there and listening to the reports, you'll know the bill moved out of committee, and you'll be able to hear who supported it and who didn't. Okay, see if you can pick it up.
Chair, Senators Dunbar, Wielechowski, signing do not pass. Senator Rauscher, signing no recommendation. Senator Clayman, signing amend. Senators Kawasaki, Myers. The bill has no further referral. It is in the Rules Committee.
Okay, that's the statement that gets made on the House floor that an hour later, that bill is now moving on to the Rules Committee, and those individuals have shown their support or lack of support for the bill. Okay. One more place that you can go. All right, stop sharing this. Let me jump over to, well, I got to back out of this first. All righty. good stuff, people. I may be the only one in Alaska that cares. Okay, so now we're at the akleg.gov website. And then you just pop in the bill that you're looking for right here. Okay. So this is HB 93. You just type it right in the search bar, and this page comes up for each one of your bills. So this is HB 93. It is now currently in rules because it was just read across the floor. It was passed out of resources and it's in rules. And whenever you see it in rules, that means it is prime for going to the floor for a vote. So in this case, it's in Senate rules. It is a House bill. That means it's already passed the House. It's ready to pass the Senate, and it can become law. As soon as they calendar it and put it for a vote, then it'll go to the governor if it passes. Okay. Now you want to know how your representative voted on it. Okay. So down here, if you click on this actions tab, and this is usually the one that's live when you go on this page, you can click here and see the full version of the bill and read the bill itself under full text. You can see fiscal notes if they're attached, any amendments that they put. All of the meetings where the bill was heard is listed here as well. And you just click on this and it'll take you to the link for the meeting, and then any supporting documentation there. Okay. So that's how you can get all of the information you want for a particular bill. Under the actions tab, you scroll down, and the first line here is telling you what happens the first time that bill entered the legislature. Okay. Read for the first time. The parentheses tell you that it was in the House because it was a House bill. Read for the first time. It was sent to Fisheries Committee and Resources. Okay. And then since it passed the House, we know that all of these actions are what's happened in each one of the committees. Okay. So in fisheries, it passed out of fisheries with 4 do pass and 1 no recommendation. You see that right here? So Representatives Kopp, Edgman, Himshoot, and Stutes all supported the bill. Vance had no recommendation. Then it goes to resources. So then how does resources vote? Okay, so House resources, 5 do pass, 1 do not pass, 2 no recommendations, 1 amend. And it's all listed here. Do pass. So Representatives Fields, Hall, Mears, Dybert, and Burke all said yes. Interestingly enough, this is a House vote, and Rauscher was a House member when that happened, because that was in 2025. Okay, so Rauscher got to vote on this twice in 2 different bodies. Do not pass. Even back in March of last year, Rauscher was against it. Okay, Colomb and Elam had no recommendation coming out of committee. Okay, Sadler said amend. All right, so then it goes to the floor of the House. Advance to third reading means it's going to go for a passage. Here's the House version of the passage. So House yes 20, yeas 27, nays 12, excused 1. So it passed. All right, then it gets transferred to the Senate, and I'm going to scroll down. We know we could do the same analysis in each one of the committees that it goes to. Senate to Judiciary and Resources. The resources vote just happened, right? So Senate resources right here, 3 do pass, 1 do not pass, 1 no rec, 2 amend. Giesel, Dunbar, Wielechowski, do pass. Rauscher, do not pass. Clayman, no recommendation. Kawasaki and Myers, amend. Okay, done. In 5 minutes, you can go and look and see exactly how your legislator or a legislator voted on a particular piece of legislation in their committee, and whether they support it. Okay, this doesn't show whether they voted in the affirmative or not to pass it out of committee. This shows their actual stance on the bill, whether they support or oppose, or whether they want to amend, or whether they just want to say, hey, you know what? I don't want to have an opinion on it, which is, I guess, the safe way to say, don't hold me accountable for something. Or I'm ambivalent. Not my issue. Okay. So that bill is now almost finished. It is referred to rules, and the rules chair can now schedule it for an up or down vote. Okay. So that's how you find out how somebody voted on a bill. Okay. let's move to some fun stuff. Has the question from Craig is, has Senator Giesel ever voted with Republicans during this entire session? I don't know. Louis, thanks for joining us. Louis M7, what is this bill about? Good question. This is the bill that we were just looking at. Let me pull this back up for you so I can talk you through it. This bill that, sorry, there. This is an act changing the residency requirements for hunting, trapping, sport fishing privileges. We can click on the documents tab, and if you wanted to look and see what the sponsor statement is here, and it probably is not going to pull it up for you. Maybe it will. Huh. Internet's taking its dear sweet time. This normally does not happen. Okay. There it is. All right. So this is the sponsor statement from Representative Himshoot, is the sponsor of the bill. So House Bill 93 updates the requirements for resident sport fishing, hunting, trapping license with the goal of ensuring resident license holders are full-time residents of the state of Alaska. So that's what it's doing. Under existing law, you can qualify for a resident license and still be indefinitely absent if you meet the low threshold of intending to remain in Alaska, maintaining a domicile in Alaska, and not establishing residency elsewhere. Currently, individuals who only spend a few months of the year or less in Alaska, but still meet the low bar of residency for licensing purposes, can enjoy our generous resident bag and possession limits, as well as reduced licensing fees. House Bill 93 will close this loophole by closely aligning the requirements for an individual to receive a resident hunting, trapping, fishing, sport fishing license with the resident requirements to receive a permanent fund dividend. Okay, so that's what that bill does. It tightens it up so that there are fewer people that can qualify for a hunting and fishing, resident hunting and fishing license in the state of Alaska. Only people who are qualified for a permanent fund dividend, a resident in that sense, would be able to benefit from would be able to buy an in-state sport fishing license for hunting and fishing. So that's what that's about. Thanks for asking. Okay. Looking to see no other questions. All right. We're going to jump over to Senate resources. We dropped off the conversation yesterday at the end of the meeting. Dan Stickle, chief economist for Department of Revenue, is still briefing the committee, and they didn't finish the conversation. So he's back today, and we get to pick up right where we really need to see is the modeling that DOR has done on the three versions of the gas line bill. So we're looking at the governor's bill, the original statutes, the current statutes, and then the version of the Senate, the resources that they're trying to pass now. Okay. So we're going to pick that up as soon as I put it up here. There we go. All right. This is pretty interesting.
Anyway, the presentation for people at home is titled Senate Bill 280, Senate Resources CS version H. And it's dated May 11th, 2026. I think we were at slide 28. Is that about right? Detailed project modeling. So welcome, Mr. Stickle.
All right, thank you. For the record, Dan Stickle, Chief Economist with Department of Revenue. So to recap, yesterday we walked through the proposed legislation for version H, as well as our understanding of what the bill would do, and our fiscal note and our implementation costs. And then the remaining slides were our detailed project modeling slides. So we'll start with slide 24, which recaps our key assumptions. And I think this is where we had left off yesterday. But to recap, we're modeling 32 years of gas sales, which includes 30 years of full exports, $46.2 billion assumed construction cost for the pipeline, $1.50 per 1,000 cubic feet gas purchase price on the North Slope. And then 2 phases of production. Phase 1 coming from a to be determined field that does require treatment costs. And then phase 2 and the anchoring of the project being from Prudhoe Bay and Point Thompson fields.
Any questions on this slide? Okay.
Not to be confused with phase 1 and phase 2 of the project, just to be clear. 2 different gas fields from the North Slope that is not the same textual definition of phase 1 and phase 2 that we hear with regard to the pipeline and the plant, the export facility, liquefaction and liquefaction and export facility in Nikiski.
So slide 25 just highlights the 3 scenarios we're running. So we're looking at the current law scenario, which would be if the AKLNG project proceeded under our current property tax regime with no tax relief provided. Senate Bill 280 as introduced by the governor, and then the version H committee substitute. And so for each of these, we're showing the impact if the project proceeded, which is not a certainty under some of the scenarios.
He said each of? Oh no, some of them.
Slide 26 is a slide I've shown before. This is our summary analysis for the current tax law. And again, to highlight those cost of supply numbers is what we really zero in on when comparing this slide to the other slides. So under current tax law without property tax relief, the in-state break-even cost of supply would be $4.86 per 1,000 cubic feet in 2033, and the delivered LNG price into the global market would be $9.07. And that
okay, remember, this is not, because it says local, that's not the price that you would pay. That's the price that the producer, the supplier here would, or let's put it another way. This is the price that the utilities would pay. So NSTAR would get that price. They're going to add another $4 on top of that, and that's what they'll charge you.
represents the price that the developer would need to receive for the gas in order to achieve a 10% rate of return on the project, given all of our other assumptions.
Okay, I probably shouldn't have paused that right where I did, just so that you're fully understanding here. To simplify all of this data down, you've got 2 numbers that are being zeroed in on at this point. It is the $4.86 that is the in-state rate to the utilities, and the $9.07 that would be to an export out-of-state price. Okay, and this is all factored in, the assumption being that you get those prices, and the Glenfarne, the project, gets 10% return. Okay, that's what the assumptions are.
The numbers on the top part of this slide are the cash flow summaries. So for the state, federal, and municipal, this represents total revenue to each of those. For the upstream and the midstream, this represents, it is their total revenue, but these are not profits. These are just the cash flows that come in. And so all of any costs have to be paid out of these numbers.
Good. I see no questions.
Slide 27 is the similar chart with Senate Bill 280.
Okay, so this is looking at what the governor introduced and would be representative of what the project says we're in favor of. Okay, this is what Senate Resources and House Resources amended in 2 different directions. Okay, so this is looking just at what you can take away and say, this is the governor's support, this is the project developer's support of what they're asking the legislature to do.
As introduced by the governor. And so we can see for the in-state cost of supply, the bill as introduced by the governor would have decreased that in-state break even from $4.86 down to $4.43 per 1,000 cubic feet. And the break even LNG price into the global market from $9.07 down to $8.48 per 1,000 cubic feet.
So you remember hearing in previous meetings that the prices, the market for natural gas for LNG is nickels and pennies. Okay. The difference between a deal and a not a deal is nickels and pennies. It isn't dollars. It is nickels and pennies. Okay. So the difference between the current statute and what Glenn Farn and the governor say is necessary to make the adjustments in the property tax revenue, revenue to the state, but make adjustments to property tax statutes, only changes the price that we're talking about in the marketplace by a few, right? It's not a huge change. That's the reality that the seller is having, the seller of LNG is having to deal with, is that the price is pennies. The difference between being able to make a sale and not is pennies or nickels.
I see no questions.
And then slide 28 is the similar slide for the committee sub.
Okay, so this is the results of the Senate's version of what they want to do.
Substitute before the committee, based on all of the provisions. The in-state break-even cost of supply would be $4.81, so about 5 cents below current law. And the global market break-even would be $9.11, which would be 4 cents per 1,000 cubic feet higher than under the current law scenario.
Okay, so the project comes to the legislature and says, hey, we need some property tax relief because we need to be able to sell our gas. And we just need the price to come down a few nickels, right? It was presented current law, $9.07. The bill that the governor brought forward for the project brought that down to $8.48. Okay. And the Senate Resources Committee said, we'll see your tax cut and we'll raise you. So current law is $9.07. And the Senate Resources Committee says, no. We're going to put the prices at $9.11. So we recognize that the deal is made on pennies. We're going to give you 4. We're going to add 4. We're going to add 4 pennies to the cost of gas to export it, and we'll see what you can do with that. We want this project so bad. We're going to put policy in place that raises the cost that you as the seller are going to take to the international community. And we think we're going to get $4.81, which is less than what current law has. And it's it's more than what the governor's bill has, but it's less than current law by 5 cents. And the reason we're going to get that is because we put a price cap on it. You won't be able to charge us anymore.
And so one of the reasons you may ask, why is the cost of supply a little bit lower under the in-state and a little bit higher under the export? So one of the provisions of this bill is that there are caps on the in-state sales price to utilities. It's the $12 per 1,000 cubic feet before exports begin, and then $5 per 1,000 cubic feet after exports begin. And effectively, what that does is we model that as a cost to the project. So those costs have to be absorbed at some point. And so when you get later into the time horizon and the cost of supply would increase with inflation, that difference between whatever the sales price would be and the $5 cap, we assume that has to be recouped through the LNG sales.
Okay, see no questions.
So whatever you hear coming out of Senate Resources about how badly they want to see a pipeline and how much they want to support the governor and the project and all of that is marketing. It's smoke and mirrors. It's BS is what it is. Okay. Because what the producer, the seller of LNG, is going to look at is this cost that they're going to have to make work out in the marketplace, right? There's nothing about what the Senate has done that makes it easier for them to go sell the gas. It makes it harder. It increased the cost of gas for them to go sell it, right? So if anybody on the Senate committee says, well, we've done something that helps move this project forward, it's a fair deal, and it's taking care of Alaskans, and it's enabling the project to move forward. You made it harder. The project comes in and says, we need to be able to get our price down. It's nickels and cents. We need to get it down. and you say you're going to support the project, and you increased it by 4 cents. Like, we're on different pages here on what support actually means.
Slide 29 is our chart of annual state revenues. This is under the current law scenario. Again, early on, we have a few years of slight reductions to state revenues as we assume that upstream producers will be making investments to expand production at Prudhoe Bay and Point Thompson to be able to deliver gas into the project. And then once full exports begin, looking at about $1 billion per year of total state revenues. And this would be under current law if the project were to proceed with no tax changes.
No questions.
Slide 30, under the bill is introduced, we have a similar story in the early years, and then about $800 million per year of state revenues.
So this is what the project is saying, totally doable. Past this, we're moving forward.
That $200 million per year represents the tax reduction in the governor's version of the bill.
But 800 million. Well, let's wait and see what the next slide is. So this is what the project said. The next slide is going to be what the Senate Resources said. So we're right here for a long-term plan here, right? We're at mostly $800 million in revenue to the state. Not good enough for Senate Resources.
I see no questions.
Slide 31 is a similar chart for the committee substitute. And so we see there is still some temporary reductions in revenue in the early years as upstream producers make those investments. Once full exports begin, we're looking at about $1 billion per year of state revenue. And then in the later years, that revenue number actually increases quite significantly to up over $1.6 billion in the 2050s. And
so if you're an investor and you're you're paying attention to this, and you know that the legislature is trying to make a decision here, and you've got options, whether you're going to invest or whether you're not. So in one case, in one scenario here, there's going to be a huge tax burden. And on the case where the project developer brought in the bill and said, hey, this is where the project needs the state to be at for taxes, there's a fairly level cost over time, right? We saw that it kind of dropped off in the later years, but the cost is, and that was looking for a revenue to the state, right? But that's representing the total tax burden on industry that's going into this project or this analysis, right? So, but here we're looking at the Senate Resources, and it isn't stable over time. It actually gets more expensive over time. So if you're the investor, you're like, why in the world would I do business with a state that wants to do this? Like that doesn't help us. That's not stable going forward. That's more costly going forward. Why would we do that? It's just the Senate Resources is sending all of the wrong signals if they actually want to see a pipeline get built, which is my point has always been, these people are liars. They don't actually want to see a pipeline built. They just don't want to get blamed for it not getting built.
So what's going on there is this bill adds escalators to the alternative volumetric tax based on 2.5% inflation, we're assuming, rather than a 1% escalator in the bill as proposed. And those escalators are coming on a higher base rate. This bill also extends corporate income tax to non-C corporations, and that becomes a significant contributor to revenue.
Yeah, Craig makes a really good point here. I didn't talk about it, but this increase in cost, that you can just represent that as the cost of gas going up for you. This tax burden, this revenue that the state's going to get if the project was built under this scenario, that's taxes that would just be passed on to the consumer. So the cost of your gas goes up over time. That's what the Senate resource is important. Don't pass the bill and keep the cost of gas steady over time. Pass the bill and increase cost of gas over time through additional taxation, right? I mean, it's nothing good about this.
Later years.
Senator Myers.
Thank you. Mr. Stickle, does this chart include the community impact fee that's in the bill?
Senator Myers, through the chair, yes, it does. So we're modeling that as a pass-through revenue to the communities, though, so it wouldn't be included in this chart. The analysis does include the community impact fee.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. I don't see any other questions.
So slide 32 is our sensitivity matrices, similar to what we've shown before. Shows that in-state gas break-even price in 2033 based on a range of upstream gas purchase prices to the producers.
Let's pause here for a second just to consume this slide, okay? You get 3 different charts, current law on top, the project preferred changes in the middle, and the Senate's preferred changes on the bottom, okay? Capital cost of the project is listed here under base CapEx, this percentage here. Basically, cost increases. What happens if the cost of the project is greater than $45 billion? What if it's 20% higher than $45 billion? Then what does that do to the upstream gas price here for each one of those categories? Okay. And under current law, your base cost here that we just saw was $4.86. That's at a base price of gas of $1.50 from the producer. Okay. $1.50 from the producer gets you $4.86, which is the number that was given to us previously. Okay. I just want to pause here and say that's what goes to the utility, to NSTAR, to the electrical utility. Okay. The cost to you is then NSTAR's got their profit and their costs, and they add that to that. Okay. The number that I've heard thrown around is they add $4 to it or somewhere around there. Okay. So under this projection here, under current law, $4.86 to $4 of utility cost gets you $8, a little under $9. Okay. So to the point of cheaper energy. Okay. This last winter, we had a pretty long, cold winter. My understanding is that Hillcorp ended up selling some gas to NSTAR short-term, short notice. In addition to what they had contracted, they needed some more gas. Okay. Gas was sold to NSTAR at $16 an MCF. This number here, $4.86, was actually just this last winter, $16 per MCF. Tack on NSTAR's cost, and that's what you're going to pay. That's what the market is needing, to have local gas produced. So the cost that the pipeline represents with regard to exporting under the Senate Bill 280 version here at $1.50 gas, $4.43, it's pennies, a couple nickels less than what it is under current law, but it's still way less than what we would be paying under this current gas production regime that the state has with Cook Inlet gas. Okay, so what happens if the cost of the project goes up? Okay, so under the bill that we're talking about right now, I'm sorry, not under Glen Farm's bill, under the project bill, what if it was 40% greater? Then the price jumps to $5.40 plus $4 for NSTAR, and then that's where you're at, right? So you're at $9 plus change, $10 gas. We just purchased gas from Hillcorp for $16. The only way that we get lower cost gas going forward is to export gas out of a pipeline. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with importation costs that are going to be similar to costs that you're getting it out of the ground in Cook Inlet. So if you can import it for 15, you're going to be paying 15 out of the ground. If you can import it for 16, you're going to be paying 16 out of the ground, because they're not going to be charging you any less than it costs to import it out of the ground, because you're going to pay the alternative. Okay. So the only way we get to cheaper, lower cost gas, I won't say cheaper because it's not going to be cheap. The only way we get to lower cost gas is to be able to export it. And that is why this bill causes such a problem.
And then a range of capital costs, starting with our $46.2 billion assumed project cost, and ranging sensitivities up to 100% capital cost increase. And then you can see the $1.50 and the base CapEx has the $4.86 per 1,000 cubic feet under current law, the $4.43 under the bill is introduced, and then the $4.81 under the CS as the break even prices that would be needed for in-state customers. And then you can see what those look like if you had different gas purchase prices or different capital cost assumptions. And then again, to reiterate, the committee substitute does have those caps on in-state gas prices to utilities, and that is incorporated into the modeling.
And the in-state price cap was $12.
Chair Giesel, so it's $12 prior to exports, and then it's $5 once exports begin. And that's per 1,000 cubic feet, and those are not inflation adjusted. And so where we see the impact of those caps is as we get into the later years, since the caps are not inflation adjusted, we do see those impacting the prices.
Gotcha. Senator Dunbar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it's funny, I never thought to ask this earlier on in these presentations. You've given us a bunch of these kinds of charts, but I think I understand what blue means, and I understand what green means. I understand what red means. Does yellow mean that they are profitable, or does yellow mean that they are not at break even? What color actually means that they're not breaking even here?
Sure, Senator Dunbar through the chair. So we didn't assign a specific price target to a specific color. We just green is a lower price, red is a higher price. We had Excel automatically do the color gradient.
Follow up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you're saying that
what color crayon should I use here when they get when they're profitable? I need a certain color here because that's what I need to just line it out here. Draw a line where they're profitable in big bold blue so I can see, or maybe green. Green means money. Draw that out. I need to be able to see it in color.
Color gradients don't have anything to do with whether or not they're breaking even. It's all just they're breaking even at all these points. So
forget the math, Senator Dunbar. Forget the math. Forget the numbers. Let's go back to kindergarten and get our colors.
Senator Dunbar, through the chair. So yes, these represent the price that would be required for the developer to earn that 10% rate of return. And I think in terms of qualifying what the colors mean, I think the next slide would probably be a little bit more appropriate for that discussion.
If you need to see your colors, we'll show you the next slide.
All right. I see no more questions on this one. We can
Dan
go to
Stickle.
slide 33.
Sure. And so
Dan Stickle knows his audience, doesn't he? He's like, we're going to need a second slide. It's going to need to be really colorful.
slide 33 is the similar sensitivity matrix, but with the break-even LNG prices into the global market. Again, under our baseline assumptions, $9.07 under current law, $8.48 under the bill as introduced, and then $9.11 under the committee substitute. And these represent the prices that would be required for the project to earn that 10% rate of return to the developer. And I mentioned this in terms of the red and green, because right now, if you go out 6 to 8 years into the LNG futures market, delivered prices in the futures market are in the $8 to $9 range. And so that gives you kind of a ballpark of what sort of price might be needed to make the project attractive. And so, yeah, the $8 to $9 prices do correlate to the green. Anything in the yellow category would be challenging, quite challenging. And then anything in the red category, I think, would certainly preclude the project from working.
So how did, Mr. Stickle, how did the 10% break even get established?
She would have to ask this, wouldn't she? She would have to ask. How did we figure out that the company gets to earn 10% profit? Hey, wouldn't this be a more economical project if the company didn't earn 10% profit? Then our prices could be lower, right? We could just drop their profit and say, you gotta not profit as much. This is our pipeline and this is the people's gas. So yes, you're a private company coming in here and doing this and we couldn't find anybody else to do it. And yes, we want you to profit less so we can have lower cost gas and we can get this going. You have to profit less. Profit bad. Taxes good.
So that was an assumption that we developed in collaboration with AGDC. And so we're assuming a 10% pre-tax rate of return. That is intended to be reflective of the range of rates of return that are typically granted to regulated pipelines. So typically for a pipeline project and investment of this nature, that's the kind of the minimum rate of return that a developer would be targeting.
Okay.
And we do have the ability to run sensitivity analysis on that. I think in a previous presentation we showed 7.5% and either a 12 or a 15% rate of return.
I've heard that the 12 to 15 is actually more common. So any questions on this slide 33?
This lady has no idea what she's talking about. It's like it's a red-breasted robin. It's more common than other types of birds. Like it's more common for people to make 12, 15% return. So 10% is not bad. I mean, if we drop it down to 9 or 8%, then it'd be okay too, because it's not as it's not 12 or 15%.
All right, seeing none.
All right, and then slide 34 is the conclusion slide. This should look familiar. So AKLNG project has the potential to generate significant revenue to the state and significant economic benefits and energy security benefits.
This gets better Rick. It gets better. Okay, so we just looked at how the Senate Resources current modeling increased the cost of gas for exportation, right? It gets better
to the state and to the country. The bill as introduced was a material decrease to the cost of gas and would absolutely make the project more attractive to investors and the developer. The version before the committee would not be a significant change from current law in terms of cost of gas provided. It would be a slight tax decrease initially, and then a slight tax increase over the life of the project. And then finally, with the caps on the in-state.
Wait,
gap,
read it. It would not materially decrease the cost of gas provided or make the project more attractive to investors. That's the current bill that is before the committee.
Prices that would almost certainly preclude an in-state only or this phase one only pipeline.
And this is the kicker. If the only thing that we were ever going to do was build an in-state pipeline, and we would get stuck with higher cost prices, okay? Well, this is how you prevent that pipeline from being built, is this bill right here, okay? Yay, they saved us from from high prices. They can go back to their constituents and say, they were never going to build an export facility anyway. They're never going to be able to sell it. And we stopped them from building this pipeline that was just going to raise our gas rates. Oh, wait a second. The alternative is importing LNG. We already know we're paying 16. You're going to be importing for 16. So the cost is already higher than what people are. I'm seeing on social media. I need to make my face bigger for this. You got to see the vitriol in my eyes. I'm seeing on social media where there are people who are ignorant. Yep, they're ignorant. They're looking at their electric bill and their mind is blown. Locally, HEA increased their rates. And they're like, wait a second. I'm using the same amount of electricity as I used last year, but I'm paying twice as much or way more, right? Bill jumped significantly. Like, I can't afford this. What happened? Those crooks, and you just see a whole litany of excuses and bad attitudes as to why this is happening, right? A whole lot of ignorance. Very few people are seeing the cost of gas and the cost of electricity is intertwined, but they're 100% intertwined. Cost of gas goes up. You buy $16 MCF gas, your cost of electricity is going to go up because look at your power bill. The COPA, cost of power adjustment, that's what's increasing. It's not the cost because you're using more. It's the power adjustment that's going up. And here we've got a committee that's like, no, we'll just increase taxes. What's coming up is even more frustrating.
The economics of that just wouldn't work. So that's all I had for this presentation.
Very good. Any questions on this presentation? All right, seeing none. So I had asked if you could give us an evaluation of what it would look like if we were to increase the gas production tax rates. So thank you for preparing this.
All right. Yeah. So this next presentation looks at that, and
because it wasn't bad enough.
Slide 2 kind of outlines the request. So we were asked to look at. So currently there is a gross tax on North Slope gas in the amount of 13% of gross value, and we were asked to look at that in 1% increments up to a 17% gross tax, and what would the fiscal impacts of that be? And so we base this analysis on, this is based on current tax law other than the project tax rate. So we haven't integrated this necessarily with any particular version of the bill.
Gotcha. Okay.
Disclaimer as we go into any talk of severance tax. So it's a very complex severance tax, and there's a lot of moving pieces. And I'm an economist, not an auditor, so this is not an official tax determination or tax advice. And so slide 4, how does the North Slope production tax work presently? So for gas, there's a 13% tax on the gross value at point of production. That was a tax rate that took effect in 2022. Previously, gas was part of the net profits tax calculation alongside oil with a 35% tax rate. The 13% gross tax was implemented as part of previous gas line legislation, which envisioned a possibility that the state would be taking ownership of both royalty and tax, taking ownership of about 25% of the gas and would take its royalty and tax in kind. And so that's where the 13% tax on gross tax combined with about a 12.5% gross royalty got you to about that 25% total gross tax. And so that's where the 13% came from, but that did take effect January of 2022. Now there is a tax ceiling in place. It is 17.7 cents per 1,000 cubic feet. That's a tax ceiling on gas used in state. And the idea there is to limit the tax liability for tax or for gas supplied to Alaskans and utilities, and allow for a potentially a higher tax rate for export gas. And the interplay of this gross tax and the tax ceiling becomes important as we go into the scenarios that we're going to run through here. In particular, if we assume a $1.50 per 1,000 cubic feet purchase price, the 17.7 cent tax ceiling is a lower tax rate than the 13% of gross value. And so at any of these 13 to 17% gross tax rates for in-state gas, the tax ceiling is going to apply, the 17.7 cents. The gas tax is calculated independently of the oil tax before applying credits, and I have a flow chart on the next slide that'll walk through that. All lease expenditures are applied in the oil tax calculation. So if a company is producing both oil and gas, they'll pay the 13% gross tax subject to the tax ceiling. For the gas portion of their production, they'll pay the 35% net tax minus credits. For the oil tax portion of their tax calculation, and then any of the costs of operating and developing those fields are deducted as part of the net tax calculation on the oil side of things. And then this final bullet point is relevant as well for gas production tax, which is that the minimum tax floor, which is calculated based on North Slope oil value, is applied as a statewide tax floor as well as a North Slope oil tax floor.
So that tax floor is 4%.
Chair Giesel, correct. 4% of the gross value of North Slope oil becomes the tax floor for the statewide production tax calculation.
Senator Myers.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Stickle, that 17.7 cents gas ceiling, is that inflation adjusted?
Senator Myers, through the chair, no.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on.
All right, so moving on to slide 5. This was a new chart that we inserted into our order of operations presentation this year to kind of try to distill down the complexity of the oil and gas production tax into a picture. And so on
This is especially for Dunbar. It's got color.
the top here, tax before credits is calculated individually based on different segments or ring fences of production. North Slope oil is a segment. All of your fields on the North Slope are combined into one tax calculation. North Slope gas is a separate segment. Middle Earth oil and Middle Earth gas are their own segments. Middle Earth refers to any production outside the North Slope and Cook Inlet.
It's not hobbits and wizards and stuff.
And then within the Cook Inlet, every single field is its own segment. So there's a separate oil tax and a separate gas tax for every lease or property in Cook Inlet. And those are all the segments. So if you have Cook Inlet production, you have a lot of different segments. Tax ceilings and tax floors apply within every one of these segments, actually. And that becomes your statewide tax before credits, is the sum of the tax liability after accounting for tax ceilings and floors for each of those segments. Then tax credits get applied. The primary tax credits are the per barrel credits for the North Slope oil production, and the per barrel credit for legacy oil or oil not allowed, not subject to gross value reduction provisions. That's the sliding scale per taxable barrel credit. That credit is limited to the tax floor, and the tax floor, which is calculated on the North Slope oil value. And so there's an interplay between all of these things. And when we were talking about the impact of lease expenditures and AKLNG on production tax, it's really all of the nuance in this picture of how all of these pieces interplay. And when you add in gas tax, it doesn't always work out to exactly 13% of the value translating into revenue. But in any case, this North Slope gas tax segment is kind of the focus of this presentation, and it's that 13% gross tax subject to the tax ceiling, and we're varying that tax rate on this one specific segment.
So we've got a couple people in the chat here that have talked about public comment period. I didn't notice that there was public comment period. I think that they have kept public comment period open because they have taken public comment before. I didn't see it come up as a thing, as a notification. It may be because it's just been open and they didn't have to re-notice it. I'm not sure, but yes, I will mention it. So I don't know which meeting they're going to hold, and we can find that here when we're done watching this. I can find it real quick and show it as to which. So I think they're going to have 2 Senate Resources meetings, but they may not both be taking public testimony. So we need to know which one it is. So Rick says he thinks it's tomorrow night at the afternoon meeting. So we'll need to figure it out, and we can do that immediately following this so that we all know when to call in and give our feedback.
Very good. So in Cook Inlet, if they're only producing in Cook Inlet, well, I'm not sure what my question is, so never mind.
It's a baffling slide.
It is. It's really excellent.
Our legislature did this to industry. We, the people, have done this to industry. That slide ought to be like, it makes my brain hurt. And I've been involved. No, I haven't been involved in oil tax making because it was done before I got there. But I've been involved in trying to understand the implications and how it's applied. Right. And that makes my head hurt for somebody who has seen it for the first time. Like, that's nice. I'm going to go make coffee now, or I'm going to go do something different, because that don't make any sense to me whatsoever. I mean, complete nonsense. But that is representative of how complex the process that we've put forward for our legislature and our laws to get maximum value out of our natural resources. We've had to, had's maybe the wrong word, but we have chosen to make it as complex as possible, which is part of the problem. It's part of the problem. You just can't see how things interrelate to each other. If you had a simple system, move this lever over here, increase this rate here, this thing over here happens, and it's very clear, right? That's that would be nice to have, but that's not what Alaska has. We've got a complex system where if you move one lever, it doesn't necessarily equate to anything that you would recognize because there's nuances and other things that happen. And it's like the oil industry would probably be completely opposed to opening up the conversation of let's scrap all this and move to a more simple design. To throw everything on its head. Let's just keep it the same. Everything's working now. Let's just leave it the same. Let's not have that conversation. The result of having a more simple tax regime and it has second and third order effects because the legislature starts thinking in more simple terms, and that would be better for all of us. Anyway, the politics of having a conversation in the legislature about oil taxes is super contentious.
You did a great job on it. It's definitely complex.
Actually, can I ask a question? Madam
Yes,
Chair?
Senator Dunbar.
The bottom right, when it says statewide tax less credits can go to zero. Is that only for oil, or can you also drive it's a gross, not a net tax, but is there some way to also drive the gas tax to zero?
Yes, Senator Dunbar through the chair. So there's a decision point here on which tax credits to use. The 024J is a reference to the non-gross value reduction or the sliding scale per taxable barrel credits. That is the credit that is limited by the minimum tax floor. So if a company chooses to avail themselves of those credits, then they must pay us at least the minimum tax floor, which is based on the 4% of the value of North Slope oil tax. If a company does not use those credits, then they can use other credits to take their tax liability all the way down to zero. Those other credits primarily would be the per taxable barrel credit for new oil, the $5 credit for gross value reduction eligible oil. And so...
Okay, I'm going to pause this because I don't know that this is even going to be pertinent for for what we're doing. What the Senate's going to be doing. I don't even know why she's having this conversation. Maybe she's trying to disprove something, or maybe she's trying to prove something. I don't know what the strategy is here. Let me answer the question for you all because I know how to answer the question, and I can show you. There you go. Okay. This is the website. You go to the homepage, click on daily schedule, scroll down, and make sure that this date is the date you're looking for. So today's the 12th. Click on the next day. This is the 13th. There's Finance Committee, House Finance, there's Senate Finance, there's Senate Resources. Senate Resources says notice to the public that they're going to take up Senate Bill 280. They're also taking up bills previously heard and scheduled. It will be streamed live. They will be taking public testimony, and that is at 9 a.m. tomorrow. And if you were in Juneau, you could go to the Butrovich room 205 on the second floor and get your meeting on in person. House Resources, let's say Senate Resources. Also on Wednesday at 3:30, they will be taking up Senate Bill 280 and bills previously heard, which means any bill that's currently in the committee, they can technically bring it up without it being listed here as the bill that they're primarily interested in. They can just pull it up and start talking about it, pass it out, amend it, whatever they want to do. So Senate Bill 280 was heard and held, or they're planning on hearing it and holding it. It looks like they will have testimony, but it will be invitation only. So somebody's going to come and talk to them about the Senate Bill 280 in the afternoon tomorrow. I have no way of knowing who that's going to be. So public testimony tomorrow, 9 a.m. Okay. I think that's about all that I can stomach for tonight of Senate Resources. Very clear, should be very clear that the members of that committee, and remember this bill goes to Senate Finance afterwards, right? So it's not done. It's still ready to be amended. Senate Resources could keep it until the last day of the session and not pass it out, and it would still have to go to Finance. So any kind of extension, although if the session actually ends, then all of the bills actually die. You don't, there won't be a process left anymore once the session ends. In a special session, the legislature, if it calls itself into special session, can take up any law, any bill that it wants to deal with. If the governor calls them into special session, then he has to list the topics for the special session, and that session is limited to those topics. So if he calls Senate Bill 280, or he calls whatever bill he calls, that's the bill that they have to deal with. They can't branch out and talk about education if it's only about oil and gas. If the special session is called only about oil and gas, then they're not at liberty to talk about education funding, for example, or dealing with the permanent fund or anything like that. So, but we already saw tonight that they put money in the supplemental budget for special session. So that to me telegraphs that they're at least leaning forward, expecting that there's going to be a special session. If that's the case, then is there really that much momentum here or intention to get this bill done? It is a legitimate question. The longer that it takes to get out of Senate Finance, the more fuel there is to the argument that says we don't really care. Like all of this modeling could happen in finance. Senate Resources got it close enough. It's basically the bill that they've got. They could just pass it out tomorrow and it go to Senate Finance, and Finance can do the modeling and get more detailed at that point. But then Giesel and the Democrats lose control over the bill. So what is the real motivation in Senate Resources? What is the real motivation? I mean, it obviously is not to make it easier for this pipeline to go forward. That's clear as day. Under no circumstances can you come away with that takeaway. Craig asks, who's on finance? Senate Finance. Let's look. I'll show you how to find it. It's right here. I'm already sharing it. Okay. Go to committees. Go to standing committees. It pops up on the website as soon as you click on it. Well, it should. Standing committees. There we go. All right. In the Senate, you're looking for finance. Finance pops up. Like having to click on everything twice for some reason. And here's your finance committee. So you got 3 co-chairs. Senator Hoffman has the operating budget. Senator Olson has probably the bills. And Senator Stedman has the capital budget. So when I say bills, when bills come before the committee that aren't appropriations bills, Senator Olson's probably got the responsibility to chair the committees dealing with those bills. Maybe he's got the mental health budget that he's in charge of. I don't know. Maybe he's doing the supplemental budgets. I'm not exactly sure. Then the other members of the committee, Senator Merrick, Senator Keel, Senator Kaufman, Senator Cronk. So I don't know that you have maybe you've got a slightly more friendly committee for a pipeline bill. Anyway, that's who we have to deal with on the Senate Finance. You can thank Giesel, you can thank Senator Bjorkman, you can thank Senator Stedman, thank Senator Stevens for the current makeup of the Senate, that the Democrats are in the majority and outnumber the Republicans on the majority. So the policies that come out of the caucus for what bills are priorities and what direction we're headed is all have numerically larger numbers of Democrats controlling that conversation. And you can thank those Republicans for making that happen. It's a Republican problem. Don't get me started. Oh my gosh. I did it to myself. You're not getting me started. Anyway, so that's who's on finance. Let's see. Let me make sure I answer your questions before we go. What Elizabeth asks, why is Cook Inlet taxed differently? Why is Cook Inlet taxed differently? Well, the economics of projects in Cook Inlet are different than the economics of projects on the North Slope or elsewhere in the state. Just think about the movement of equipment to the North Slope to drill a gas well, for example. You don't have to do it on water. You do have to do it in the permafrost and the tundra up there. So you're moving, large equipment and heavy equipment. You're moving it in the wintertime. You got to build an ice road. There's costs associated with that. And then, but you got to put your platform and your structure and your apparatus, all of the stuff, the equipment that you need to do business to go after the drill for the gas and then put pipes out, and all of that has to be built, but it's all being built on land. Whereas Cook Inlet, obviously, is an oil or a gas platform out in the middle of the Cook Inlet, and pipes got to be run from the pipeline. Pipelines have to be run from the platform to shore. And so there's just a different cost structure for doing business in Cook Inlet than there is for doing business on the North Slope. And so that's, at least one reason why there's a difference between tax structures on Cook Inlet production and why North Slope. Now, historically, I don't know if I could answer that historically. I don't know historically why there may be some differences based on history as opposed to the economics of the projects. But that's probably the best answer that I could give you right now, is just because they're different projects, and the state recognizes it. That, a developer comes in and says, hey, I'm going to need to be taxed on this thing, and I can do it, but the North Slope tax doesn't work for me here. I need some tax break. I need a different tax structure in order for me to be profitable here, because it's more costly to do business here than it is on the North Slope, for example. So over time, you end up with different structures. Hope that answers your question. It's the best that I can do. So we talked about the public testimony happening tomorrow, 9 a.m. Dean says that the Alaskans need to start hearing the word subsidized. The export of gas, the export of LNG at some price plus will be subsidizing state gas at a price minus. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. The only way that we have lower cost gas from the pipeline project is if it is being exported. The export price drives down the price that the local in-state rate is going to be paid at. Okay, because there's more customers, there's larger volume going out. Maybe not larger customers, but there's more volume going out, so the cost comes down. If in-state purchasers are dealing with the volume, that's the only way that the volume is being consumed is through in-state purchasers, then the price goes way up. And that's what will happen if they build a pipeline and don't build an export facility, which is, in my mind, there's some risk there that the Glenfarne or somebody doesn't play ball with taxes and we end up with a pipeline and no export facility, whatever. I don't know. I don't know what all of the things that could get in the way, but if something got in the way and you didn't have the export facility, but now we got the pipeline, well, we're stuck with long-term gas. We will never run out of gas, but it's going to be expensive. And I don't even know what would happen then. I mean, Glenfarne would have to charge whatever they had to charge for that gas to stay profitable, and it would just mean that we would be spending lots on for gas. If you're thinking about second or third order effects, if you're thinking about the so what of what would the environment be like in Alaska, the business environment? Well, if we only had a pipeline and we had high cost gas, and that high cost gas was similar in price for when it's used to generate electricity, to say putting in a commercial operation of solar panels or wind farms. Okay. Well, if it's less costly to put in solar panels than it is gas, then the industry would say, okay, well, let's put in the solar panels because the gas is too expensive. That's the thinking that goes down further down the road. Why would you not want the pipeline? Because the price of gas is going to be less than the cost of electricity generated from solar panels. So electricity generated from gas is still going to be less costly than the electricity generated from solar panels, given the investment money that's needed to put that in. Okay. So if that's the case, then you don't want the pipeline, because you want the environment, the business environment to incentivize the thing that you want. And if the thing you want is windmills and solar panels, then you want high cost gas. But it appears that they're not opposed. They're not. Well, I take that back. They are saying they want low cost in-state gas because that's why they put the price caps on. That's what they're saying, right? It doesn't actually work that way because you're not going to get a project with a price cap. And Dan Stickle pointed that out. He's like, you put the price cap on, there is no in-state only pipeline, period. End of story, because you don't get low cost gas that way. Glenfarne cannot be profitable with $5 gas. Not going to happen. So anyway, it is what it is. It's going to be interesting to see what they actually come up with. And I mean, not shocking to me if Glenfarne just pulls up stakes and says, peace out. We gave it our best shot. Sorry to our investors that we weren't able to make this work. We're going to go to Zimbabwe because they may be shooting at us, but it's a whole lot easier for us to do work over there. My apologies to Zimbabweans. I didn't mean to pick you in particular. Just I had to pick somebody. Glenfarne can go somewhere else and probably have an easier go at it than dealing with the Alaska State Legislature. And that is a sad, sad statement of our affairs right now. All right. Well, let's figure out what's going on tomorrow, and we'll update you on what happens with public testimony. I don't know. I'm probably not going to be sharing public testimony on here. Maybe it's comical and we should make sure people are hearing it. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, have a good night. We will chat with you tomorrow, 7 p.m., same time. We'll get started, and we'll see you then. If you got questions in the meantime, shoot me an email, producer@oversightlive.com. I got that right here. You got questions, you want to support the show, go to oversightlive.com. Hit that like and share and subscribe, whichever platform you're on. That'll help spread the word. More people need to know what's going on. So do your part and spread the word. Thanks for participating tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night.